Hey everyone, Cameron Keller here. I just wanted to address something that was brought to my attention last night. I was at the Greenwood City Council financial study session and I was handed a newspaper. And in the editorial of that newspaper, my name was mentioned next to an endorsement of my opponent. And there's nothing particularly negative there, but there are some implications that I would like to address so that I am the one that defines the narrative of my candidacy and not someone else. So just to go through here, first of all, it says that I am a young man eager to get into politics. Now, let's stop the presses. I'm going to make a controversial statement here. I am a young man. I am on the younger side. I'm not in high school, I'm not in college, but I am on the younger side as compared to the average age on the council. But the part that I take a little issue with is the eager to get into politics part. And there's two implications there that I'd like to address. Firstly, the implication that I am getting into politics. It implies that I haven't already been in politics. And that's just not true. 2 years ago, I ran for city council, as most of you know. That I was written about in the editorial of the same newspaper last election cycle. Some would consider that being involved in politics. But beyond that, I've been involved in the Sebastian County Republican Committee for the last several years. I'm now their vice chair, and I represent them on the state committee. You could consider that to be political engagement. And of course, most importantly, I work for a political nonprofit, Americans for Prosperity. I am their policy director. I've worked for them for 2 years now, and part of my job is to develop the priorities that we're going to be pursuing in the next legislative session. And of course, I've done a lot of under the dome work. I've done a lot of door knocking, policy analysis, things like that. So to say that I'm not already involved in politics is just not true. But the second implication is one that is a little more troublesome. The implication, sort of, when I read it, and maybe the author didn't mean it that way, I certainly won't attribute this to him, but when I read it, it almost seems like it's saying this young man is eager to get into politics, so this is his stepping stone. He's using the city council as a stepping stone to his next position. And I just want to address that because it is a patently false idea. The idea that I would be running for this office simply so that I could run for another office in the future. First of all, I think that's not a very smart way to do things. And it's also inconceivable to me to put as much time and effort and pour your soul into something that you don't even want to do. You're only doing as a stepping stone to something else. Look, in the future, might I run for some sort of higher office if somebody retires or if I'm approached? Maybe, I don't know. But frankly, I am doing this because I care about the city, because I love this city, and because I hear almost every day when I talk to my neighbors, when I talk to people out at restaurants, out at the store, I hear the same thing. We need a change on the council. We need a fresh direction on the council. And I hear this from councilmen themselves. They won't, tell you this publicly, but they say it too. We need something different on the council. We need someone to go in there and shake things up. I'm not running because someone said, we need somebody who can use this as a stepping stone to their next position. That's just not why I'm running. And that's really disingenuous, frankly, if for anybody who would be doing it for that reason. The next line talks about me getting involved in the community as a volunteer. The implication there is that I am not already involved in the community, which is, again, patently false. Anybody who knows me knows that I am very involved in the community, at least going back to 2018. In 2018, I volunteered with the Sebastian County Election Commission, and I worked at the polls here in Greenwood at the fairgrounds when it was not the fairgrounds. It was at the city hall when it was held there. And if you voted on election day in 2018, you saw me there, and I was working on a voluntary basis. I came back in 2020 to work for them, on an actual part-time basis. And I did well enough that they wanted me to come back and be an election judge, which is the person that's over the precinct. I couldn't do it. I had another job at the time. But I have a lot of volunteer experience and community involvement in Greenwood going back years, literal years. And one of the most important pieces of my volunteer involvement is me attending regularly city council meetings. In fact, I'm one of the only citizens who consistently attends the city council meetings. And of course, that's not to say anything negative about anybody. I mean, not everybody has the time to sit through a 2, 3, 4 hour meeting just so they can hear the council argue and, slowly get through an issue. The last thing here is hopefully he can earn a reputation for himself with experience that propels him into politics. But until then, he lacks the experience relevant to a place on the city council. So what I would say there is, other than my opponent, Steve Tedford, who did work for the city, back in 2011 was when he last worked for the city. I can't think of another city councilman that actually had experience working for the city or in politics, not a sitting city councilman anyway. You've got a small business owner, you've got a financial planner, you've got somebody who works for Game and Fish Commission, but none of them worked for the city that I know of, and none of them really had any prior political experience. So the idea that you have to have worked for the city or been a politician prior, I would take issue with that. I think that's false. And, I would just also say, and not necessarily in reference to anybody on the council, but, being in office or, having a particular level of experience is not always the best thing. We look at people, on the federal level, on the state level, and, sometimes at the municipal level, and we see this person's been in office for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. They're a career politician. And a lot of times we find ourselves not satisfied with the job that they've done. And so that is the lane in which I am running right now. And the question that I would ask of anybody who is undecided or perhaps is supportive of my opponent is, are you satisfied with the job that the city council is doing right now? Do you feel as though the Greenwood City Council is being transparent, as though they're being forthcoming about what they're doing? I would, of course, ask anybody to go and look on my opponents or any of the city councilmen's Facebook pages and see exactly how active they are and how they're keeping their constituents updated. I'm running because I care about this city. I think it's time for a change on the city council, and I think it's time for somebody who's going to be accountable, who's going to be transparent and going to let you know what they're doing. Because look, not enough people know what's going on the city council. Not enough people know how to get in contact with their city councilman. But I can assure you, and I will have future content coming about this later on, and you can, of course, go to my website. It's in my link on my campaign page. But I can assure you that if I am elected, I'm going to be a transparent and accountable representative of the people, rather than my own self-interest. So thank you all so much for your time. I know this was a longer form video, but I just needed to address this. I'll probably do the same in just a regular post so you don't have to listen. You can just read it. Thank you again. God bless you. God bless Greenwood, and have a great weekend.